All right, welcome back. Today we are doing the Vesper. I'm actually very excited about this. I've been counting down the days to this one because this is one of my favorite drinks actually, and it's got a lot of history. It's very interesting. This is the last of our classic alternative martinis. Right from here, we're doing a hard pivot into the neo martinis, the martinis in name only. I'm sure a lot of people are going to find those more fun than everything we've done so far. We're going to get into, basically the lemon drops, the Cosmos, the espresso martinis, but these are the foundation, right? These drinks, the original martini, the tuxedo, today the Vesper. These are the classic ones that basically founded, cocktails as an art. Getting into the Vesper, right? So the Vesper is actually James Bond's actual drink, right? So in the first James Bond novel, Casino Royale, which was written in 1953, I think, Ian Fleming actually said, he came up with this cocktail. In the Casino Royale movie that came out in the early 2000s, they had this novel accurate cocktail. They got into it. They kind of explained it a little bit. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But just to kind of get into a few points, the Vesper was developed by Ian Fleming, and it's a controversial drink because bartenders or cocktail historians actually argue that it's not a good drink, and that even Ian Fleming thought it was a disgusting drink. The Bond movies in the past, right, going back to Goldfinger, going back to Dr. No, going back to all the classics, they never got into it, right? Bond drank multiple drinks. Somewhere along the line, he started doing the vodka martini shaken, not stirred. Not in the novels, not something that was truly, true to form. It was probably just a marketing, something that was pitched, sold. They liked it, the idea of it being sexy, who knows. But the original drink, right? So in Casino Royale, there's a scene, they cut it straight in the movie, exactly how it is in the book is how they did in the movie, where he calls the barman over and says, vodka martini. And as the guy's about to walk away, he stops him and he says, 3 measures of Gordon's gin, 1 measure of vodka, doesn't specify, and a half measure of kina lillet. Kina lillet is a drink that doesn't exist anymore. All right. Some people will say, well, you can use lillet blanc. Lillet blanc is another fortified wine. I don't think it's an appropriate swap. Not that I've ever tasted kina lillet, but kina lillet had quinine in it. Quinine is bitter. Lillet blanc is not bitter, does not have quinine. So I did a little bit of research, and Cocchi Americano is what I heard is the best, 1-for-1 swap. I've also read, and actually I've experienced this. I've seen this in bars, and I've used it myself using Lillet Blanc, not Lillet Blanc. I've seen Lillet Blanc. Lillet Blanc gives you a sweeter cocktail. But if you use Bianco vermouth or Blanc vermouth with a little bit of orange bitters, actually, it does give you the same effect. Again, I can't tell you because I haven't tried kina lillet, but today we're going to be doing Cocchi Americano. I've never tried it with Cocchi Americano, but I'm excited because this is going to be an interesting experience for both of us. Let's see, what else do I want to say about this? Oh, I've seen a lot of different things about, so first cocktail, like I said, he orders the, barman comes over, tells him, I want, vodka martini, but then he corrects him saying, the specific specs, 3-1 half measure, with a thin piece of lemon, shaken until cold and aerated. I said on our first martini video, I think I've said it a few times, but definitely on the first one I said it, that the martini should not be shaken, right? If you shake it, you're going to bruise the gin, you're going to get those ice crystals in it, it's going to give you a different mouthfeel because now you're aerating the cocktail. You have a lot of people online, people love to express their opinions, and, for whatever reason, now all of a sudden everybody who's on the internet is, experts in espionage, experts in, counter surveillance material, techniques. And, all these people love to be like, well, the reason why Bond orders the shaken martini is because it dilutes it more. So he's not going to get drunk as quickly. I'm going to call bullshit on that because in Casino Royale, the book, I don't think they mentioned it in the movie, but in the book, he actually says it, that the reason why he likes this drink is because he only likes to have one drink before dinner, and he likes it to have a lot of alcohol. So you tell me that, that mentality of, yeah, I want something that's going to pack a punch. The idea of diluting it down just doesn't, doesn't hold water. But I'm thinking it's probably Ian Fleming was not a bartender. He did not know the cocktails. He did not know he just liked the idea of specifying, of being a control freak, and basically just, dictating down to the measures of alcohol, coming up with it. And both in the book and in the movie, he had never tried this cocktail before until he spit it out right then and there. All right. So he goes, they bring it out to him. He tastes it and he's like, oh, that's quite good. He called it a martini the first time, but later on in the book and in the movie, he names it after his female lead, who is Vesper. Anything else I want to say about this? We talked about shaking. We talked about the kina lillet. Later on in both the book and the movie, there's a scene where he actually specifies. He just orders a martini. He doesn't specify that he wants this one. And they ask him if he wants it shaken or stirred, and he actually specifies, I don't give a damn. I think that one they included in the movie just to make sure that it's like, hey, listen, this is Bond doesn't care, right? It's very much, he is this guy that, yes, he's a control freak 1 minute, but then the next minute, if he's ordering a drink, he's just going to, order it as it comes. It doesn't matter. He doesn't have to have it shaken every time. I don't know. I can't tell you the specifics about that. He's a fictional character. I can't get into psychology, but just based on what I think, that's where we are. Again, bartenders, cocktail, mixologists, cocktail historians will argue that this is not a good drink. And like I said, Ian Fleming himself did not like the drink. I don't know if it's, when he was coming up with it, he tried it, didn't like it. I don't know what it was, but famously, he did not like this drink. So there are a lot of people who say it's not a good drink. There are articles out there. If you look it up, the Vesper, and you'll see Vesper is not a good drink. But it has a cult following. It's one of these where you'll find it in certain places. I do feel that in the early 2000s, I don't know if it was because of Casino Royale being being released as a movie, it got a little bit of a surge. It was something I'd seen on menus long before, but it was one of these where it was like offshoots. It wasn't necessarily something that was a very common drink. While now you do see it in places. I actually ordered a Vesper not too long ago at the Commodore Room in Coconut Grove, and it was perfectly made. It was perfectly made as in the quality, not perfectly made as in the ratios. We'll talk about that. If you know, you know. But yeah, I think I've shared everything I wanted to share about this. As you can tell, I'm very excited about this. This is one of my favorites. Oh, batching cocktails. I think that was the other reason why it kind of had a little bit of a heyday. Bars, especially the craft cocktail bars, started. It became a thing, especially 2010s. What is it, like 12, 16, right around there. It became very popular that they would have a house cocktail that was batched, barrel aged, or just sitting there, sometimes tapped. This is one that's perfect for that because there's nothing in it that's going to go bad. You have alcohol, you have a fortified wine of some sort. So again, something that's going to last being, especially if it's chilled, it's not going to go bad, and airtight container, it's not going to go bad. It's good to go. So, and this is something that actually I've made a few times. I've not gotten the hang. I really have to work on my ratios for batching cocktails for the freezer door cocktail. J.M. Hirsch does a really great series on freezer door cocktails. If you don't know him, check him out. He does, like I said, he does really solid stuff. But again, I don't know what it is when I do it. I don't get the dilution ratios right. So it's always a little too, it's perfect for me because I like spirit forward, but I know for a fact that it's stronger than when I make it fresh because it's not something that, there's no ice in it. It's literally just alcohol when I make it because my ratio, like I said, when I put the water in it to dilute it, I'm always off on that ratio. Today, because we're making this and I am making it, recipe accurate, I will be using a shaker. I use a Boston shaker. I like the Boston shaker better just because I feel I have more control over it. It doesn't lock as well. I feel that cocktail shakers, You need the really good quality ones. If you don't get like the really, really, really good quality, I feel like they get stuck, especially when you shake them and they get frozen. They start, getting frosty on the outside. I feel like they get stuck a little bit easier than the Boston Shaker does. I feel the Boston Shaker is more versatile. I get to use it whenever I need to. I can use it for muddling. One less item I have, and space, as I've said before, is everything for me because I live in an apartment. So I'm going to go ahead and start building this. I'm a little nervous about shaking on camera because stirring at least is not something that I get violent with, but with shaking, it is something where, if I'm not careful, my cocktail's going to go flying and, make a big mess. I'm sure it'll be fun for you guys, not for me, but... All right, so I got my cocktail glass chilling. Also, I don't know if you guys saw, I made a short over the weekend. It's how to use, basically just giving you the 3 martini glasses, right? The martini glass, the coupe, which is what I use, and the Nick and Nora, just kind of showing you what they look like. I might do another one later where I kind of get more into the specifics about each glass, but either way. So we start off, I got ice in the shaker. Start off with 3 measures of gin. All right, so that's 1. Now with 1 measure of vodka. Vodka, as always, I'm using the Goodnight Lovin'. I actually really like this vodka. It's a good brand. And last but not least, we're doing our half measure of Cocchi Americano. And like I said before, it's supposed to be kina lillet. Kina lillet does not exist anymore. You can do it with Lillet Blanc, but like I said, I feel Lillet Blanc is too sweet and doesn't have the bitter that you would get from the kina lillet. I've also seen recipes call for using the Lillet Blanc or using the Bianco Vermouth and adding orange bitters, but I didn't want to mess with that because I'm not sure on the proportions. So we're going to start off with this, and I'm already planning on making a separate Vesper episode for Vesper alternatives. I might make it with the Bianco Vermouth instead of the Cocchi Americano. I do have another version of the Vesper that I make with slow gin instead of regular gin. I call that the Shelby Vesper. Shout out to my friend Shelby, but we'll talk about that later. But right now, like I said, this is a classic, and I'm going to start shaking, so it's going to get loud, and we're going to go from there. So here we go. All right, so as you can tell, I have a very crude technique for shaking just because I'm not a bartender. All right, I'm just going to pour it one last time. As you can see, it's nice and frosted. It's foamy. All right, so I'm going to scoot all this over so you guys can see. All right, so one last thing about shaking cocktails. Sometimes you don't have to, but for drinks like this, you should double strain. And the reason for that is so you don't get ice chips floating in your drink. So here we go. All right. Ooh, made a mess there. Let me go ahead and just... saving this for later. I got a few ice chips in there actually, so all right. I'll save that for later. And lastly, this drink calls for a piece of lemon peel. So let's see if the bane of my existence, I can actually get a good piece. Maybe. All right. I feel like I got a good piece there. All right. Moment of truth. Let's see if we got this ready. Just express. Got a little bit. I don't think you guys saw that on camera, but it's all right. I'm just going to give it a good twist and drop it in. All right. So this is the cocktail. As you can tell, the foaminess kind of subsided a little bit. Vesper Martini. Let's get into it. Oh, that is good. Like I said before, this is one of my favorites. I've had this. I feel that the Cocchi Americano makes a big difference. I had never had it with a Cocchi Americano before, and I can tell you now it is the perfect balance. So what I like about this cocktail is we're diluting the gin with vodka, so you don't have that pure gin flavor. It kind of mellows it out a little bit, and then the Cocchi Americano is giving it, kind of rounding out the cocktail with complexity. It's kind of just giving it a touch of bitter, right? So this isn't too far off from my classic martini, from the martini I do with the orange bitters and the vermouth, the Bianco vermouth. And then the lemon peel gives it just that brightness of citrus. Oh, that is so good. It's cold to perfection, which is great. Admittedly, I don't think it makes a difference if you shake it or if you stir it. I did it shaken for your guys' benefit just because, like I said, this is a, I guess, to make a historically accurate Vesper, it needs to be shaken. But as far as the cocktail goes, I don't think it needs to be shaken. I think you could stir it just fine. Maybe the dilution makes a big difference, but not to me. I don't know. The Cocchi Americano really makes a big difference on the finish. I don't know how to describe it other than saying that. I know I've made this multiple times without Cocchi Americano. I've done it with lillet blanc, which is sweeter. I feel that the lillet blanc is missing something. It's missing that bitterness. And maybe just adding the bitters to it is the way to go. Like I said, I've done it with the Bianco vermouth. And actually, I do want to point out, there's a scene, I can't tell you, the only James Bond novel I've read is Casino Royale. But there's a scene in the follow-up movie, Quantum of Solace, where he's getting drunk on a plane. It's right after he picks up his friend, or his friend helps him out, I should say. And they're flying to South America on a private jet. And while he's on the plane drinking, he tells him, he's like, oh, he asked the bartender to make a drink. And his friend Magnus is like, oh, what is that? And he explains, oh, it's the gin, the vodka, and kina lillet. And then he specifies straight up, he's like, which is not vermouth. I assume that was just because the movie came out and everybody started making it, I don't know, with vermouth. So they were kind of like, oh, we gotta give out this this disclaimer. I don't know if that's the case. Again, that's my assumption, just based on everything. If I hit the camera, I hit the mic right now and it gave a lot of noise. I apologize for that. Still getting used to the mic. I'm hoping I'm not talking in like a porny voice, because that's weird. But anyways, I'm going to finish this off camera as usual. This concludes our classic martinis. Now, mind you, we're still not out of martinis yet. The Martini Woods. We finished the Martini Primer, the Martini Masterclass, right? This is my last of the classic alternative martinis, right? And the whole point here was basically saying there were other drinks that didn't have vermouth. There were other drinks that were the martini or martini adjacent, but are not martinis. But I finished that, and now the next step is going to be going into those, the neo martinis. The 90s were a time of martini unrest. Everywhere you would go, there was martini. There was, the apple tini. I'm not making an apple tini. I refuse. Absolutely refuse. But I will be making lemon drops. I will be making Cosmos. I actually found out that there's another drink that's, I guess, an alternative Cosmo called the Metropolitan. So I'm excited about trying that one out. What else? We're going to be making an espresso martini. I have one or two alternatives that I'm going to kind of throw out there while we're going through these cocktails. And then we are officially done with martinis and we're moving on to the next chapter, which I have yet to decide. We'll see where we end up when I get through martinis. But either way, guys, thank you for joining me on this journey. I'm going to finish this off camera, like I always do. Hope you guys have a great night. Cheers, and see you next time.